Lighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. So glad you could join us here on the show. Whatever's on your mind, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, it is all on the tables. And now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, been getting questions all week about your upcoming Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course this upcoming Saturday. So first off, if you want to tell the audience a little bit more about it, if they don't know much, if they have any questions, also availability, and if they want to sign up, how could they do so?
Yes, I moved the course up 1 week because I'm getting surgery again on my foot on the 15th. So we're going to be doing the course this Saturday, the 10th, from 9 a.m. in the morning Eastern Standard Time to 6 p.m. We do an hour for lunch, so it's 2 sessions basically. The great thing about doing it online, I used to like to do it in person, but the great thing about doing it online is that it's recorded. So you can go back and watch it as many times as you want. So you have access to, sign into the educational portal, and you can watch it after, the course is over, which gives you the ability, to really absorb it. A lot of people like to, watch things. I'm that way. I like to watch, learn by repetition. Obviously, you're going to have, personal interaction with me. It's a really good interface. You're going to learn everything you need to know about becoming a diet guru coach, which doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a coach. It could just be you want personal information about how to write diets, off-season, pre-contest, performance-enhancing drugs. It's everything from steroids to the peptide hormones, GH, IGF-1, insulin usage, all the supplementation that we talk about in terms of vitamins, minerals, trace metals, supplements for performance, detoxification, how to write diets for women versus men, doing, like I said, site injection oils. It goes over, there's not a single topic that I haven't covered. And it's a 100-page manual that I wrote that you get for free with the course. And that's worth its weight in gold because that's all my protocols that I've developed over all the years of doing this for the last almost 30 years. So I think it's a really, really good course, not just for beginners and people who want to learn, but for people who have been coaching people and maybe just want more knowledge so they understand the whys of why they're, telling people to eat certain foods and do certain kinds of cardio and stuff like that. I have a lot of people that take it every single year as a refresher course for themselves. The great thing about this is it's continuing education. So if you are a coach and you do have a business, it's a write-off, a tax write-off, so you don't have to worry about that. You can go to my DavePalumbo.com website, sign up anytime. It'll take you to the Palumbo University portal, and you just log in there and you sign up for that course. And that will be this Saturday, September 10th at 9 a.m. in the morning. It'll be starting Eastern Standard Time. So as long as you have a computer, or a phone, I mean, it's pretty simple to log into. It's a no-brainer. And like I said, who knows? I don't know when I'm going to be giving it again because of my stupid foot surgery. So it might not be till January. So this is might be the last one for the year. We might sneak one in December. I'm not sure.
Let's go to the questions. Again, the first 2 questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Question about your bodybuilding career. I read on one of your Instagram posts that your regular contest weight was 265 pounds. You then decided to grow up to 281 pounds. How long did that take? And what did you change, training, diet, your protocols, gear, to get to 281 pounds?
I was at that weight, essentially. Let me take a step back. In 1995, when I did the Junior Nationals, I was 258. That was the biggest I had ever been on stage. The following year at the Nationals, I was 268. And I kind of hovered around that 270 to 265 range, and that seemed to be where I was placing my best. I had a bad year. I forget what year it was. I don't think I had a bad year. I didn't think I had a bad year, but the judges didn't put me in a good placing. So someone said, "Why don't you just compete at 280? 290. Everyone want to see me at 300." They're like, "You have glutes at 300." So I said, "You know what? I'm going to try to come in bigger. I'm not going to diet down so much because I didn't really need to get that light. I was pretty lean, at 280, and so when I weighed in at the North Americans in 98, I was 281 pounds. I don't know what I was on stage, if I was heavier or the same. I might have been a few pounds heavier. I don't know when I continue to carb up. But then, you take water out. So I really didn't have to do anything. I didn't grow to that weight. I just was able to compete at a heavier weight and still be conditioned. But the judges, because structurally, I didn't have the right structure, or I would have probably gone a lot further, I overcame a lot of genetic flaws in the sense that I wasn't as wide shoulder-wise in terms of bone structure. I put a lot of mass on, and I always came in super conditioned. But it seemed like the judges liked my look better when I was ridiculously shredded. In other words, not just better than everyone else, but better than myself. And I think that was the look that placed me the best. So then I stuck around 265 because that's where I placed the best. But a lot of people liked me bigger, obviously. But I didn't have. Once again, if I had a big rammy structure, I could have competed at 300 and been ripped. But I didn't have that structure, so it made me look blocky, I think, a little bit when I was too big. When I was super lean, you saw all the little striations in my obliques and stuff like that. And I think that wowed and beat a lot of guys that were better than me because I just had more mass and more conditioning. So that's what bodybuilding is about. It's about an illusion. It's really not about the scale. It's about what looks better on your particular physique. And the judges will tell you. You don't have to even ask them. You'll see how you place, and you'll know what look is the best. And that's what I went with after that. I realized, okay, the experiment was a success. I competed at 280. I was ripped. I was shredded. I did a lot of pictures after that. I have a lot of good pictures from that. But they liked me ridiculously shredded, and so I went back to that look, and that's when I placed my best, second place, third place, at Nationals and USA.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. We've been getting a lot of questions about tendonitis lately, so I'm going to have to look a little bit more into that. But would HGH help with tricep tendonitis? If not, what would?
This is a good question. These questions come from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which you guys can sign up for. It's $29 a month. You get access to all my questions and answer articles I've written, all the videos I've ever done regarding this. It's all in one place. It's like a nice little, I guess you could say, library of all my stuff that I've done. Plus, we do an original Q&A every single week video on there just for the app members. And everyone has the ability to ask questions on the app, and I answer them in an open forum so everyone sees everyone's questions and answers. And we put up a workout every single week there. So it's a really good app. But this question is really valid. A lot of people ask me, hey, if I have tendonitis, now you gotta think about what tendonitis is. Tendonitis is the tendon is inflamed. It's not ripped, it's not torn, it's inflamed. And why is it getting inflamed? Well, usually tendons get inflamed because they're rubbing against something. And if you have elbow tendonitis, it's usually because the elbow tendon is rubbing against that bony groove here. And it's usually due to a shoulder problem because the shoulder is hurting or something like that. And you don't realize it, so your body's kind of changing its positioning when it's doing pressing movements, and then the tendon of your tricep starts rubbing against something that it shouldn't be rubbing against. And what happens? It gets inflamed. That's called tendonitis. You could take growth hormone. You could take, healing peptides like BPC 157, TB 500. But the bottom line is that you're not really healing anything. You got to stop the cause of the tendonitis first. Now, does that mean going for deep tissue massage, or I like active release techniques, which kind of releases that tendon and will free up this chain of musculature so that the tendon is now moving in the right groove. Then once you fix that, if you want to take some growth hormone or some Arthrolyze or a combination of that or some BPC 157, now you can, if there is any damage done to the tendon, it'll heal. But bottom line is that you got to solve what's causing the tendonitis. Now, if you tore a muscle or you injured something, okay, in the gym, GH, BPC 157, those arthrolyze, extra vitamin C, those raw ingredients or those growth factors will definitely help heal that injury faster. So you got to make a distinction between I injured myself versus a nagging tendonitis that's been, there for a couple of weeks now because something's not moving correctly in my body, And the distinction is important because that's going to dictate what the therapy is that you use, So I hope that clarification helps.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. Let's go to Dan Schreibert. Going from an off-season diet to a cutting diet, should you shift gears immediately and do an immediate 180 with, talking about diet, specifically carbs? Should you cut carbs like in a 180 fashion or in a gradual manner? So going off season in a contest form, what would you suggest as far as carbs?
Well, if the person is pretty lean in the off season, which not many people are, I think that it's okay to kind of sometimes a lot of times I don't even put people on a contest diet right away. I'll keep them on the off-season diet. I might pull a meal because usually I have them eat 7 or 8 meals a day. And I might go down to 6 meals, but keep the off-season diet going and see how they respond to that. If they start losing weight, then great. But for people who need to lose a lot of weight and who got a little sloppy maybe in the off-season, I would go right down to my pre-contest, macros, whatever those happen to be for that particular person, And the body doesn't know that you've reduced carbs by 200 grams a day. It'll deplete glycogen a little bit down, but it's not, the carbs, remember, don't build and repair muscle. They're just a fuel source. So, if instead of filling up the gas tank in my car every week, despite whether the tank is low or not, if I let the tank run down to, almost nothing and then fill it up, the car doesn't perform better or worse. It doesn't know, as long as it has some gasoline in the tank, you know what I mean? And you might be a little worried if the tank gets too low, but it's still running the car, And that's the same thing with the body. You might lose some water and dehydrate, get rid of some of that bloat you had, and you might see a drastic weight loss. You could see sometimes 10, 15 pounds that first 2 weeks because you're losing a lot of water weight. But that doesn't mean you've lost any muscle. It just means you've lost extra bloat and you've lost some of the glycogen storage in the muscle. But if you're eating enough protein and fat, you're not going to lose any muscle. So it really depends on, to answer the question, it depends on how much body fat the person needs to lose. If they don't need to lose very much, then there's no reason in cutting stuff drastically. But if they have some work to do for the next 16 weeks, there's nothing wrong with going right to contest prep diet.
Ben Gizmo wants to know if you're still coaching Zack Khan, and if you are, what's the latest you can tell us about him?
I haven't really talked to Zack recently. I think he got a little discouraged, probably. He hadn't been placing, as the way he wanted. And he had some injuries he had to fix first, he told me. And so he was going to get I think he was going to get a surgery on something, if I remember correctly. So he'll be back, though, because I talked to his sponsor, and his sponsor is going to be coming on board with us again. And we'll be promoting Zack and some of the products that Zack's going to be pushing. So we'll hopefully be able to get Zack back on Iron Rage with Lee Priest because people seem to love when he comes on that show as well. Look, Zack's at a point.
You should get him on After Hours.
Yeah, I know. I think there's too many personalities on After Hours. He's better with Lee, I think, on Iron Rage. The problem with everyone remembers Zack, as a big freaky guy, and he's still big and freaky. He's 300 pounds, but it doesn't even serve that he needs to even compete anymore if he doesn't want to. His talents are really, he's a very funny guy. He's got great insights into bodybuilding. I think if he did more social media stuff or came on some TV shows, I think that people would really appreciate his knowledge because he's not a dumb guy. He's a very smart guy. And, he has his own unique personality, just like Lee Priest does. They have their own wry sense of humor. And I think that people really appreciate his insights because he's a no bullshit guy, And so hopefully we see him back on the show.
No, he's a fan favorite for sure, especially on this channel. Oscar M8, can you stay on 500 mg test and 200 mg tren until showday? I'm 14 weeks out.
Yeah, I don't usually do the tren the whole diet because I think it's just too much, and guys get irritable on it and they don't sleep well on it. So I usually do the first 6 to 8 weeks of the diet. I'll do some equipoise and a little deca maybe and some test, and then the second half of the diet, like starting 8 weeks out, that's when I'll throw the trenbolone in. I'll do tren, test, Masteron, maybe some Winstrol, and that seems to be a better way to go, because being on trenbolone for 16 or 14, 16 weeks, whatever he's asking, that's a long time, and you start getting really, really nasty on this stuff. I think that's probably the worst drug I ever took in terms of how I felt mood wise, because I'm a pretty even, even when things are going bad in my life, I'm a pretty even mood guy. Like, I can laugh and be in a good mood no matter what. And when I was on tren, I wanted to fight people. I didn't do it, but I had this really angry feeling inside all the time, and it was very hard to sleep. It's not something you want to feel all the time. When I would go off my cycle after the show was over, I was like, what the fuck was wrong with me? Why was I on this stuff so long? Because I went from being terrible mood to feeling great. And so I think being on tren more than 8 or 10 weeks is a little too much.
Good one here from Bilal Hamide. And anytime that we've had a discussion about today's gear or about the efficacy, obviously you talk about, testing and the importance of testing your gear. But he wants to know, as far as symptoms, without testing it, would there be any telltale symptoms that your GH is real or not? Or not real, rather.
Yeah, I mean, when guys complain to me that their hands are going numb, that's pretty much a telltale sign that the GH is real. I don't think any other drug really does that. When you take a shot of GH, initially, if you don't eat anything, you get an IGF release right after the growth hormone is taken. So you can get a blood sugar drop initially. That's, we used to try to use that as a way to tell. We would take a big GH shot and then not eat for like 2 or 3 hours and see if your blood sugar drops really low. And if you get a little bit of a low, that could give you an idea. It's not going to tell you how much is in there, but it'll give you an idea that it's kind of real. When I took it for quite a while, GH, so I kind of knew how I felt on it. You kind of have like a more full, more, I don't know if you can say, better pump in the muscles and a rounder look to your physique. That's a little more esoteric. Like, if you don't know your physique and if you're not super lean, you might not even catch that little nuance. But like I said, if you feel your hands tingling, that falling asleep feeling, when people tell me that, I know right away they're on GH. The bottom line is that GH is very expensive. Okay, let's face it. Even the cheap ones that they sell are expensive compared to steroids. Steroids are like super cheap compared to GH. GH might be 5-6 times more expensive than the steroids. So if you're going to use that and spend that much money, you'd be crazy not to test it. I mean, we have growth hormone testing kits now. They're super easy. It's like a pregnancy test. You dip the thing in and you wait 20 minutes and it'll tell you if the stuff's real or not. Now, it's not going to give you the dosage, but at least you have a real product in front of you. Because I can't tell you how many people have tested their GH and sent me the results, and I had to tell them, look, guys, there's 2 lines here. This is fake. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry that you found out this way, but at least you didn't waste your time, using it. Now, I don't know how much they bought of this stuff. I always tell people, buy 1 bottle, test it. If it's good, then you can buy more of the same lot. But I'm telling you, in today's world, you are crazy if you don't test your gear. I see so many fakes. I work with a lot of clients, and even the people I don't work with personally, they'll buy the Roy test kits and the GH testers from my DavePalumbo.com website. And invariably, when people get something that's not real, they'll send me the result and ask me just to verify it. And, I see so many fakes. I can't even believe it. Not just stuff that's like should be tren, but it's test propionate, or it should be test enanthate, it's test propionate. I'm talking about stuff that's zero. There's nothing in there. People just using water, basically, or oil, And so don't waste your money. Don't waste your time. Test it. It's not expensive. The steroid testers are like $19. The GH testers are a little more expensive, but you know what? The GH is more expensive. So don't be cheap. This is if you want to make this your career, or you want to make money from bodybuilding, you got to know that your supplies that you have, your tools that you use, work. If not, you kind of spinning your wheels.
Richard 9000 wants to know, so I've been off and on cycles for the past few years, more off than on. Never took a proper PCT. Is there any risk to not doing a proper PCT? I guess I'll take it a step further. Yeah. For those that, have been on and off cycle for a few years, First off, I guess if you totally skip through that phase, the risk of that, but then do you need to do a PCT after every cycle or rather after every phase, or is once in a while good enough?
Look, you don't need to do anything. If you're going to go off cycle and then you're going to go back on in 6 to 8 weeks, then probably not a big deal. I just like the whole idea of turning the testicles back on, turning the pituitary on, even though it's temporary because you're going to go back on cycle in 8 weeks or so. But it's not necessary. You just might feel terrible, for longer. Because if you do PCT, which is 2 weeks of HCG, 2 weeks of Clomid, and then 4 weeks off, that's my protocol. The first 4 weeks, you'll feel pretty good because you still have some stuff in your system. Plus, you got the HCG kind of turning your testicles on. The last 4 weeks is usually when people don't feel so great, but that's only 4 weeks. 4 weeks goes like that. Now, if you don't do any PCT, you might feel worse. Those first 4 weeks might not be as good of an experience. So you might have a longer period to go off. I mean, I don't recommend it, but if you were going to go off completely and say, you know what, Dave, I'm not taking any gear for 6 months, you better do a PCT because then you're going to be in big trouble because then nothing's turning back on probably. So, but if you're going to go right back on after, like I said, an 8-week off period, you could probably get away with not doing it. Do I recommend it? No.
Feed Me Good Eats, currently taking 20 mg of rovastatin while going on cycle. How well will the statin do to keep lipids under control?
These statins work differently in different people. I really am not a big fan of them. The only time I tell people to take them is if you have a genetic predisposition for super high LDLs and you have blockages or calcium buildup in your vessels. Well, how do you know that? Well, blood work will tell you what your LDL levels are. And I have guys that come back to me, they're like, well, my LDLs are 130, which is a little high. They should be about under 100. And then I'll put them on like Omega Lyes. I'll get them on Fiber Lyes. And you know what? It comes down to normal. So those people are not the people we're talking about. I'm talking about people that have like an LDL of 200 or plus or 190 plus, and they cannot get it down no matter what they do supplement-wise, diet-wise, cardio-wise. It doesn't budge because that's their family history. They have a family history of high LDL cholesterol. Their father had it. Their grandfather had it. And then they go and they get a cardiac CT scan or cardiac CT calcium score, and it's high or it's above 0. Now they have 2 risk factors for coronary artery disease. Number 1, they have high LDL cholesterol running around their body, looking to be deposited into vessels. Number 2, they actually have some blockages, or they have the beginnings of some buildup, meaning that they have a genetic predisposition that has nothing to do with diet. This is what their body does, unfortunately, because they're genetically programmed to do that. Those people should take statins. But if you have a high LDL and you have a 0 calcium score, you have no blockages on a cardiac CT scan, I wouldn't take a statin. There's too many side effects to go along with that. But like I said, if you have both of those extenuating circumstances because that's genetically what you're prone to, I definitely would consider taking it. How much it will inhibit, cholesterol or block, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's quantified that yet. That just seems to be a standard. You have this problem, you take this. But doctors like to overprescribe statins. So, take it with a grain of salt. Look at all the data first before you make a decision.
Robert Paul, been monitoring my morning fasted blood sugars recently. Seems morning is around 87 to 94. Looking at past blood work over the years, this seems where I land. Seen as low as 76, high of 103 in years past. Would a slow acting over-the-counter insulin be beneficial, or do I listen to my doctor and not worry about it? Active, 43 years old. Don't want to end up in a situation 20 years from now where it's something I can handle at this time.
Right. Well, his blood sugars sound like they're in range most of the time. 94 once in a while is not a big deal. Now, if you're running in the hundreds a couple of days a week, that's not good. But it seems like he's mostly, in the normal range, under 90. I get a couple of 92, 94s here and there. That's just normal. Plus, you know what? Those blood sugar monitors from Walmart that I tell everyone to get the Rely-Ons, they're only accurate. So you got to do plus or minus, 5 or 6 points. So even if you're 95, you're probably still in the normal range. I wouldn't get too worried about it. If you're running over 100, though, on a regular basis, that's too high, or close to 100 on a regular basis, that's too high. And then I would consider using a long-acting insulin, whether it be Trashiba is the best one out there, but then there's Lantus, and then you can get the stuff at Walmart for $25 without a prescription. That's Novulin N. So that's the long-acting Novulin brand, and that's Walmart sells that really cheap, $25 for a 10 cc bottle. That's what a lot of people use because it's just easy to get. You don't need a prescription. It's really, really inexpensive. And I even have a couple of guys that have some post-meal high blood sugars, and they're actually using the Novulin R, which also Walmart sells for $25 for a 10 cc bottle. That's like it's a fast-acting, but not a super fast-acting. So it'll basically cover 2 meals. It'll cover, if you take 10 units of the Novulin R, it'll give you 5 units at 1 meal, and then 2 hours later you get another 5-unit release. And so you get 2 meals covered with that. And that's for guys that just have post-meal highs. Most people who start out with a little bit of blood sugar issues who are on GH, it's the morning blood sugars that are a little high and they're elevated. And that really responds very well to a short-acting insulin. Now, we're going to be doing a show, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, with Colette Nelson again on some of the new insulins, because they came out with a whole bunch of new insulins that she's going to tell us about and get us excited about as well. But for now, like I said, Walmart seems to be the easiest place to go.
Manny Guerra, the best test and deca ratio, and can one add EQ to that combination?
I usually use test and deca or test and EQ. Now, pre-contest, a lot of times I'll do test EQ and I'll put 1 cc of deca in just for joint relief. But otherwise, I usually pick one or the other. I like 1,000 milligrams of test to about 500 or 600 milligrams of deca per week. So you're talking about, a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 times the test, you're going to take out the deca.
I know you're going to enjoy this one. It's from Jenna Sudi. During your bodybuilding days, what method of cooking was your favorite or the best way to cook chicken in bulk?
Yeah, I'm a wok guy. I like I always, whenever I go to a Chinese takeout place, I always like to watch them cook, and so I went and got a wok, and I do exactly what they do, except I don't use oil. I don't think they use. Sometimes they use oil for the fried rice, but I saw when they would cook like the steamed chicken, they would put water and soy sauce in a pan, and they would throw the chicken. Well, sometimes they would just use water, but I used water and kikkoman soy sauce in a pan. I'd throw my chicken or my fish or my meat, whatever I was cooking, into that pan. If I wanted to put some spices on it, put some spices on it. Usually the soy sauce was good enough, and I would cook it. By the time the chicken, fish, or meat was cooked and done, all the water had evaporated and all the soy sauce had been absorbed into the meat, and it tasted delicious. That's how I did it. Quick cleanup. There's no oil. There's no splatter anywhere because there's no oil in you're not putting spraying with tons of oil. Plus, you're not adding any extra fat to the meals because of that. And that was my favorite way. It was quick. It was over with. The cleanup was quick, and that's how I did it for years and years. Even to this day, I still do it that way. However, especially like if you're dieting, that's really good. The only time I would put oil in a pan would be when I cook my eggs. So if I'm cooking like my omega-3 eggs in the morning, I'm putting macadamia nut oil, just about a little, maybe a quarter-sized dollop, and I kind of wipe it around the pan, and then I put my eggs in my, whatever I'm eating, mushrooms in there or whatever. I put those into the pan, and I cook it like that, just so the eggs don't stick. But I'm not putting like a significant amount of oil. There's no oil coming off into the eggs at all. Now, off season, if you want to saute stuff, saute your salmon or meats or chicken in some mac oil, like I, do sometimes, that's fine because it doesn't matter if you're putting extra fats into your food. But when you're cooking pre-contest, you got to be cognizant of the fact that when you cook in oil, the oil gets absorbed into the food. That's extra fat calories that you have not accounted for, and that can absolutely sabotage your diet. It happens. I have a lot of women who use that PAM spray. They think it's 0 calories. It's not. The food absorbs that stuff. So I would stick with poaching or grilling your food on a grill like a George Foreman grill or whatever the latest grills are out there now, or even baking the food also as well. On a piece of aluminum foil, you can just lightly grease that, and that's fine. But watch the oil when you're sautéing stuff.
Your thoughts on carbohydrate powder? When is the best time to consume the drink? Is it best to combine the carb powder with aminos and water or just plain water?
I only do carb drinks, or at least when I was competing, I would do carb drinks, pre-workout, post-workout. So I would put like nowadays I would use my Carbolyze and Isolyze, before I trained about 20, 30 minutes. I even put a tablespoon of mac oil in there to kind of slow down the absorption a little bit. And then post-workout, I would use Carbolyze, Isolyze, so whey isolate with high molecular weight carbohydrate, and no oil post-workout because you want to get that stuff in quickly into the muscle. Now, during my, I guess, bout of trying to gain muscle over the years, back in the early 90s, I had a very, very fast metabolism and I couldn't eat enough food. So I would use carb powders. The problem was there was really no good carb powders back then. They were all basically sugar, dextrose and stuff like that. I used to use Ultra Fuel. The Twin Lab had made a powdered form of it too. It was like 100 grams of carbs per like 2 scoops or something like that. And I would throw that in with a Metrex packet, and I would use that during the day just because I couldn't get it down enough calories. For most people, that's not an issue. Most people, if they started eating massive amounts of carbs during the day, they're going to get fat. That was just my way of doing it. For conventional, for most people, the best way to do a carb powder is pre and post workout, I think, though.
Take 2 more questions. Vincent Picarillo, cannabis oils and bodybuilding. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about CBD in general.
Yeah.
Now that I guess it's really been around a lot more, proficient amongst bodybuilders now for recovery purposes. Have your thoughts evolved at all, or just do you have more information about cannabis oils and how I guess impacts bodybuilding?
Yeah. I've tried the cannabis oils. I've done everything from, just drank it. I've vaped it. Because people send me all these different versions. Pills. I just don't like the way I feel. Something feels a little weird. I feel a little lazy on this stuff. I don't know. It's not a marijuana-like laziness, but it's just like, I don't know. It's to me, it's not a good feeling. I mean, maybe for other people, they enjoy that relaxing feeling. I don't think it has any negatives to it. I think that if you like it and you feel good and it relaxes you, it's not going to have any negative ramifications to building and repairing muscle, if that's the question that's being asked. And so I think in that sense, it's safe to take, but some people like it, some people don't. I don't particularly feel good on it at all. But I'm not really a marijuana person either. Like I don't really. It doesn't work well with my personality. I don't know why. I just don't. It dries my mouth out. I just don't feel like I don't like that particular drug for some reason. But a lot of people do. I think marijuana, because it does have a tendency to raise estrogen levels, has to be carefully used pre-contest. But for a lot of people, it's a very important thing that they do every day because it really relaxes them and it keeps their anxiety at bay. So I'm all for medicinal uses of cannabis, whether it be CBD or the full strength, THC marijuana, if it works for you. It doesn't work for me well, but I don't have a problem with people using it.
Last question from Todd Payette Universe. How freaky do you think Sergio Oliva Sr. would be if he was in his prime today with access to everything that today's bodybuilder has access to?
Yeah, assuming he had access to all those things and he had a coach who can actually tell him how to take it, like he had like a Chad Nichols or something like that, he probably would have been a freak of freaks. I mean, the guy had the craziest proportion of all time, small waist, and just he was monstrously big, and he probably didn't even know what he was doing. He probably didn't even eat right. He probably, his training probably was very unconventional. And, it's always interesting to speculate when you see a specimen like that who's got the genetic gifts. He could have been a Ronnie Coleman for all we know. I mean, look at Ronnie. I mean, Ronnie was incredible before he even took any drugs. I mean, I bet you Sergio wasn't even on that many drugs, and he was a freak like that. So he probably could have been another Ronnie Coleman, if he would have done everything the right way, But sometimes when people have those genetic gifts, they don't want to hear anyone else's advice, and maybe he wouldn't have listened. So who knows,
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. We have all new episodes of last night's episode of Heavy Muscle Radio, Sunday night. After Hours, all new episode of After Hours, as well as Sunday night's live episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. And then, of course, tomorrow, all new Iron Rage with Lee Priest. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.